Welcome to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast with Lawrence Monaig, where we explore the ketogenic lifestyle and how it can improve your physical and mental health. Each week, we bring you valuable insights and advice from experts to help you on your journey to a healthier lifestyle. This episode is brought to you by BasicKetogenicLifestyle.com, where Lawrence coaches individuals with depression to reverse their symptoms and achieve a healthier, happier life using an evidence-based approach. So sit back, relax, and join us as we dive deep into the world of ketones and coffee. Subscribe to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast today and never miss an episode.
I'm so excited for this. We have a very special guest on our podcast today. Please join me in welcoming Elaina Wang. She is a certified nutrition coach, and her incredible journey from chronic illness to reclaiming her health is nothing short of inspiring. She dedicates her life in advocating and helping others find the ketogenic way of life. Elaina Wang, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. This is fun.
I can't wait for this episode to come out because I had a pleasure of crossing paths with you, Elaina, through the ketogenic lifestyle coaching, and which is a remarkable community of coaches who are passionate about the ketogenic approach. So where we connected online, but I also had the privilege of meeting you in person at KetoCon just a few months ago. So if you were at KetoCon, you met us. We had a booth there for ketogenic lifestyle coaching and ballistic keto.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, what sets Elaina apart is her fearless commitment to sharing her story. I don't know if you remember, we had a conversation at KetoCon, and I asked you how keto has impacted your life, and you fearlessly opened up about your battles with, drug addiction, sugar addiction. And your journey is one of resilience, determination, and just your transformation is incredible. But when you shared that with me, I knew right then and there that, I had to have you on the show. So, and today, here we are, ready to dive deep in Elena's story. So,
Totally.
do you remember that?
I do remember that, and I've been sharing my drug addiction stuff openly in the recovery for years now. There's really not a lot of us that come full circle and recover. So I think it's important for others to know for themselves or even their families and friends and peers that are struggling with addiction that we can recover.
Yes. That's very important. And yeah, that's why I love to have you on. I don't think I've had anybody with your experience and your transformation. So this will be a nice treat for our listeners here. So, Elaina, we understand that your struggles with health began at a young age, and we love success stories here. That's why you're here. And can you share a little bit about that backstory and how you were able to conquer these struggles?
So it all started like way back as a child. I come from a past of childhood, like morbid obesity. I was in that first generation of like the 90s kids with type 2 diabetes and morbidly obese. Like I remember wearing men's clothing as a child because I couldn't fit in the girls' clothing and the women's clothing, especially my arms. They were too big to get in the sleeves, and so I was running around in like men's jeans and t-shirts and kind of made that my style. I remember being probably like 12 years old and being like just over 200 pounds, like slightly remember that. And I just kept getting bigger and bigger. So I was really sick. I ended up with mono twice, and they diagnosed me with Epstein Barr syndrome and chronic fatigue. So from there, I was like, I couldn't go to school basically because I was always sick. I was always tired. And my mom pulled me out of school so that she wouldn't get in trouble for me not going. I did end up getting my GED and going to college, but I just kept getting sicker and bigger. And I never had energy, like that kid energy where you want to run around. I would try, but I would crash. And then I would end up relapsing and getting sick. And I did that for a lot of years, and that's kind of what got me started on the drugs. So somebody gave me drugs one day. It was meth, and I tried it, and I was like, oh my God, because I felt energy for the first time in my life, and I was just hooked on that because it felt really good, and I didn't know what it was like to feel that good. So I did that for about 15 years, unfortunately. But I ended up diagnosed as type 2 diabetic when I was 24. And we suspect I probably had diabetes in my teen years because of how big I got. And
Mhm.
I didn't care about the diagnosis. So I took metformin for a short minute and then just kind of went off of it and went out of control for years and years and years.
Mhm. So, and then I want to. What's Epstein Barr syndrome? I want to go back to that. What is that? And maybe someone out there is also experiencing that. What was your experience like? And how long did it take for it
So
to
the
heal?
Epstein Barr virus, EBV, it's
Mhm.
exhausting. It's super exhausting. You're always tired. You're always, easily getting sick. Your immune system just tanks.
Mhm.
And you'll have like a good day here and there, but if you do too much on that good day, you relapse and you get sick again. So you're constantly just fighting illness or feeling illness. The exhaustion, I remember I didn't even want to get out of bed. I was always just so tired and
Mhm.
felt like crap, and a lot of infections, so it would lead to infections everywhere all the time forever.
Mhm.
I haven't had any issues though since keto, so I'm pretty sure the Epstein Barr virus is in full remission. Though I've read that it can be re-triggered, I
Yeah.
haven't had that experience so far.
What's if keto helped with it? What do you think was causing it?
So they say that I got the virus from having mono twice.
Mm.
Is what the doctor said. I was in small town Washington, a little town called Okanagan, and we didn't have a lot of great medical resources. So I don't know like how legit that information was. We didn't really have the ability to seek out, the most excellent medical professionals in Okanagan.
Yeah.
And I ended up losing my gallbladder at 15. They said it
Hmm.
was full of stones. And then right after that, they actually misdiagnosed me with HIV because the nurses took my blood for my liver enzymes too soon after surgery. So I went to Seattle Children's Hospital at one point and they were talking about like a whole liver transplant, but they took my blood and they were like, "You're fine, go home." So that was probably the only time I seen, a really good doctor was when I went to the children's hospital.
Now you were experiencing this preteen and as a teenager. You probably were experiencing a lot of fear and emotions at this time, and like you said, started a roller coaster ride for you of emotional eating, right? And then it led you to your introduction to meth and sugary foods, right? And then where does the gaining weight came into play? How when did that start?
I started gaining weight at a young age. So before any of that, I mean, I was the fat kid. I was definitely probably one of the biggest in school. I honestly, like, when I think back, I can't think of any, maybe one girl that might have been bigger than me in comparison, but definitely huge from an early age. So it was kind of fascinating. My mom had this old swimsuit that she bought me to go to the public pool when I was maybe 10 years old, and it was a women's swimsuit, a women's plus size. And I put it on again when she pulled it out. It had to be at about my 7 year mark keto, I think, when she found it. And the stomach on it was just so saggy. There's no way I could wear it as an adult. And I was wearing that to the public pool as a child.
Mm,
I think
there's a
the
lot.
last time I was like a healthy size in childhood, I was probably 6 years old.
What was your relationship with food like? When growing up around the house.
So food was the one thing I could do. I could eat and I could eat and I could eat. And that's like the one thing that I was able to do. You can lay in bed and eat all day. My mom
Hmm.
also owned a child care, so I was raised on the government food guidelines in the United States. So
Hmm.
back then it was like the food pyramid. And because it was an in-home daycare, she was bound by those rules to feed us that. And we all ended up extremely overweight and extremely sick.
Because at 24, which is a very young age, you were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. That
Yeah.
means because type 2 diabetes is progressive and it's slow progressing, and so you must have had this. You must have been pre-diabetic in your
Oh,
teenage years.
easily. I was
Yeah.
probably full blown diabetic by age like 12 or 13, but we don't have any
Yeah.
medical proof of it because back then they weren't testing children for diabetes.
Mm. And then you grown to almost 300 pounds, right? And
Yeah. So
uh,
I think I easily would have hit close to 300, if not over 300, when
mm,
I gave up the meth. So I used sugar to give up meth for a hot minute. And then I was like, I have this diabetes diagnosis, so I should probably check my blood sugar. And that's kind of
mm.
where it all started.
Before I ask you on how you turn things around, I want to ask, how did you arrive to that? Like, how did you arrive to that breaking point? Because for me, my tipping point was, when I was experiencing that major depression about 6, 7 years ago. I was at the point where when my wife, she was solid, she was always right there, and the only person who understood me, all of a sudden, she broke down, and the idea of I might lose her made me realize that no one is coming to save me but myself. No one's coming, right? No matter how much support you get from the people you love, it's still you, right? I want to know, like, what was that for you? Why did you took action at that point? What led you to doing so?
Well, through all my addiction years, like I knew in the back of my mind, like I knew there was something more I wanted out of life. I've always known that. I was like, I want to be somebody and do something somewhere. I didn't want to spend my life in Okanagan, Washington. I had no desire to be a farmer, and that's basically all you do if you live in Okanagan, or like work fast food or something. And I wanted something else. I hadn't really had a good relationship with my mom for about 5 years because she's like, I just can't, and I don't blame her. She did the right thing. That was definitely the best thing she could have done because it also made me want to have a good relationship with her. And my husband was also a big breaking point. So we were starting to have a lot of like little issues with police, like starting to follow him around and following drug dealers. And this is out in the country. They know who we all are. And he had some immigration issues out of England that needed sorted out. And I knew in my mind that if he would have gotten caught with drugs, there was no chance. He would have been deported back to England and I would have lost him because he was also getting pretty fed up with the drugs. He was over it before I was. And so I was like, okay, and I spent a good couple of years like thinking about it. I was like, I know I need to do this. I'm tired of it, but the addiction just kind of keeps a hold of you. Until one day I was like, okay. So our drug dealer had went to jail and we didn't think that he was going to be getting out anytime soon. And we were like, okay, let's call it. Let's quit this. And then he was released from jail, but we decided, even though he contacted us, he's like, hey, I'm back. And we were like, no. And just decided that it was time to find a new life.
Mm. And then at the same time, you said that you focus on taking control of your diabetes too, right?
Yeah, so I probably slept for like a good month straight. And then I started binge eating sugar when I couldn't sleep anymore, I'd caught up a little bit on my rest and I just started eating and eating and eating the cravings away because I didn't go to any treatment centers and there's no addiction help where I'm from. I mean, now there's a little bit, but back then there wasn't really anything. And so I was eating those urges
Hmm.
and I ballooned up. I was gaining pretty rapidly. Everybody thinks, oh, a tweaker, that's what they call the meth addicts. The tweakers are always skinny. Well, if you're a diabetic and you're binge eating sugar, you're not going to be skinny. And I
Hmm.
used that for years and years and years. I was like, I'm too fat to be an addict, whatever. That was my excuse to all the people. And I got really big. And I wasn't self-conscious about the size, but then I was like, wait, I was diagnosed with diabetes. I should really probably figure this out. And it just hit me one day. It was like, I did not recover from this addiction just to die of diabetes. And I
Hmm.
was 30 when that happened. So it'd been 6 years that I just let it go out of control. So I was eating what was ice cream. I made a post on Facebook. Gotta love Facebook. And it was the first thing that got it started. I was like, so I know I'm diabetic, but I haven't tested in years. I mean, should I be eating like this regular ice cream or the sugar-free stuff with all the chemicals in it? And at that point I had zero like nutrition information. I knew nothing really. And people are like, you need to test your blood sugar. Like, just test your blood sugar. Just stop it. So I bought a meter online and had it shipped to me. And my first test was 426. I was like, wow. That, because that's deadly, especially for only being 30 years old. I had asked it was an essential oils group of all places. I was like, where can I go to get help with diabetes naturally? Because I knew if I went to a doctor, they were going to put me on insulin. And I also have a fascination with needles. So I knew that if I went to the doctor and got on insulin, I was going to end up, doing drugs again. I felt that heavy. So they sent me to a low carb group where I made my way to keto. And it was amazing. It all happened so fast after I was like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. How long did that take from you realizing that I'm at 30 years old and I could die from, high blood sugar, and if I don't stop my addiction, to you finding out about keto? How long was that point?
Definitely like within 2 months. So it was within 4 months that I had given up the meth and then found my way to keto. But there was also this severely diabetic elderly man who lived just a couple places down from where we lived. And when I got out and started walking around, I got to see the consequences of uncontrolled diabetes over the years. I mean, he was missing a leg and an arm, and he was always in pain, and he was in a bad way. And I don't want to be that person.
How strong was the urge for you to make a change at this point?
Huge, like super huge.
What's driving that?
I was ready. I wish that I knew what clicked in my brain, but I woke up one day and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I am ready. I don't want to die. I didn't recover just to die. There's more out there.
So you didn't want another year of this, and you just wanted to make a change. What was your, at that point before you started keto? What were you envisioning for yourself?
Sobriety, 100%. That was all I was focused on. I was like, okay, I'm going to be sober. And there's a lot of doom and gloom when it comes to breaking that kind of an addiction. Literally just focusing on staying sober is all you can do for a hot minute.
Did you did you ever try getting sober before that?
Like briefly, none of the times that it really stuck, I wasn't committed. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And there's a couple times that I had stayed clean. At one point, like right before I met my husband, I had been clean for just a couple of months. And he had also been clean for a couple of months. And then we met up together at this job that I had gotten, and we both started all over again.
So
but we also
knew
got clean together for the last time. We're still together, and a lot of people can't do that. They have to leave their relationship in order for them to continue on and be clean.
So would you say that you knew how to get clean since you had an experience?
Not really. I knew how to do the act of stopping. It was a long-term commitment that I wasn't sure of. The long-term commitment. So even now, there are some addicts out there that will go a good 10 years and then they relapse. And we're at a place where relapse is not an option. We love what we've built. So we built from the ground up, and we don't have this like huge, amazing, extravagant, rich lifestyle. Like, we live in this fifth wheel in Las Vegas, but we work hard and we live a good life. And I just wanted to live a good life. I wanted to travel, which I'm doing a lot of traveling now. And I wanted to work towards something different and be an example, because I basically half of the people I grew up with have struggled with addiction, and not many of us have recovered. It's probably more than half, honestly, and being nice. But
Yeah.
I want them to know that there's more. There's so
There's
much
more.
more.
And you know that there's so much more.
There definitely is.
Yeah.
I never imagined living in Las Vegas either. Like coming from a farming community and then being in Las Vegas and thriving. If I would have come to Las Vegas in my active addiction, I would have died here.
So there was an actual feeling of that you could die.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
big time. I'm surprised that I'm alive. I'm surprised I made it out of my 20s, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm about to be 40 in December, and I'm going to celebrate big because the grace of God is probably the only reason I'm alive.
What does it take? What did it take for you to do that and make that decision? And I just want to get to, maybe somebody's struggling right now and come across this recording and they're struggling to make that way from to sobriety from, that dark place. What did it take you? What did it take for you to do this?
A solid choice. It does all come down to choices.
So it's just a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. I know that there's a lot of back and forth arguments out there between addiction being a choice and a disease. And I will say it is definitely both. I come from heavily addicted family members, especially like my dad's side, my Wang side. There's a lot of very strong addiction, and I see the disease part of it. But ultimately, the choice is ours if we're going to pursue that as a disease and use that as an excuse, or if we're going to realize that we can actually control our choices with this disease. So I like to use the diabetes as another great example of that. Yeah, I'm type 2 diabetic. Yes, that's a disease. But the choices that I make every day can control it or can drive it and make it worse. And addiction is like the same concept.
And you're definitely going to inspire a lot of people. And, you're inspiring your family. That was what's driving you, is to inspire your family too. And also you talked about the natural approaches to diabetes control. I want you to talk about that and what gave you the idea that there was a natural way, because some people will just go to their doctor, get checked. They don't really believe in natural approaches. They think that's woo woo and it doesn't work. I mean, right? What made you think that there was a natural way? Or have you heard of it before? Or how did you hear it from somewhere? Somebody about diabetes and natural approaches. Where did you sort of come across that idea?
I was basically clueless going into it. I knew there was pharmaceutical, but it was the needle thing. I was really afraid that I would just relapse on drugs if I started using needles, and it would have killed me for sure. But I've always had like this little hippie in me. I'm definitely a little hippie, and I've known, just in general, that there are natural ways to do things, that pharmaceuticals are not the only answer, but I didn't know what that looked like or what that meant. And, everybody knows like there's an essential oil for everything. So I went to this essential oil group that I was in and asked them first. And luckily they were brutally honest with me. They were like, look, oils are amazing, but oils alone are not going to fix your diabetes. So they had given me suggestions for some that could like possibly help, like some cinnamon. And then someone had also suggested berberine in the capsule form, but then they sent me off to a low carb diabetic group. And that got me going. Like I was reading and learning. So the curriculum they were using was Dr. Eric Westman. And I jumped right in. And page 4, like a lot of the new people probably don't know Eric Westman's page 4, but us that have been here a while in the Ketoverse definitely know about Dr. Westman's page 4. I don't even know if it exists anymore or like where, but that's what I started with. And then Dr. Sarah Hallberg, I saw her TED talk about reversing diabetes soon after I started with Eric Westman's page 4, and it was life-changing. It took me over a year to get my blood sugar down to even in the hundreds from over 400. I'm definitely very progressed. I say I have old lady diabetes. So my diabetes is definitely not, mild. It's not pre-diabetic. It's hard to control. It's a difficult battle. And I think, I did that to myself. So I have to own that and deal with that.
Mhm.
But I'm doing it.
Yeah. I love the awareness that you have. And just, you know, interesting also that you said there's a natural way of dealing with our health issues, and which is true, right? There's especially type 2 diabetes, and you just so happens that you stumble upon these people, went to, was that a store,
Oh, the
the
essential
essential
oil
oil?
group. It
Yeah.
was a Facebook group.
Oh, okay.
So I joined this group, Hopewell Essential Oils. I've never been a fan of the big MLM companies. And
Yeah.
I found this cute little essential oil company that's actually located in Texas. But it's owned by this wonderful, amazing human named Linda Sherman.
Hmm.
And she put this together with her family, and they grow their own plants there, and they do all this fun stuff, and they have their small
Nice.
general store. But she shares all of this information openly and for
Hmm.
free, and you don't have to sell her products, and you don't have to you don't have to do anything. And the
Hmm.
quality of their oils is right up there with our lovely, well-known MLM companies.
Yeah, so let's get to you finding out keto. What was your first reaction? I'm gonna take us back because a lot of people are, could stumble upon keto and then they would Google it, find out about what keto is, and then you'll see there's a lot of different opinions online which can push you away, not follow through on keto because it says it could be dangerous. But what was your first reaction? What did you do in the first couple of weeks? Did you jump on it? What I know you said you've watched a couple of videos, Dr. Eric Westman and Sarah Hallberg, great people. But what was your first reaction and how did you come about starting keto?
So I started more like low carb because I was like, well, it's okay if I have a Reese's peanut butter cup every day. Like my husband would bring home the 2-pack and we would each have one. And then I did like the sugar-free ice cream for the first couple of months. But I wasn't seeing the results that I wanted. I didn't get on Google immediately, surprisingly. I
Mhm.
just like immersed myself in that Facebook group and all of the content that they had there that was related to reversing the type 2 diabetes, and I stuck with it. I loved it because I've always loved meat. Like I was like, oh, I can have all the
Yes.
protein, and then they're like, eat the fatty meat, and I'm like, can I get the fat too? And that was amazing. So a little bit of danger has never really scared me, obviously. So instead of being like worried about the fat, I was like, whatever they said I can eat it, I'm gonna eat it.
Yeah.
And I just went into it completely uneducated and blindsided, and I loved it because I got to eat the things that I enjoyed, even though I was told they were bad. And all of a sudden, somebody was telling me it was good, so I was down.
Yeah, and then what was your experience the first couple of weeks, and did you on low carb, and then when did you go full keto?
So I went full keto within like the first 2 to 3 months of it. I was noticing that I was having a hard time with the blood sugar. And when I got the meter to test, so I started testing obsessively. It was easily testing 10 to 15 times a day.
Hmm.
So I would test like before and after. I would eat anything just to see the result because that's what they were telling me. They were like, this is how you can see what you can do. You're going to base this on what your meter says. That's also what got me to quit smoking cigarettes. So
Hmm.
I tested smoking a cigarette, and every time I would smoke, it would spike my blood sugar by 40 points. And so that was going against what I was trying to accomplish. And then I quit smoking cigarettes cold turkey.
Mm. Now you quit meth, you quit carbs, and then now you quit
And
cigarettes.
now yeah, and cigarettes and soda pop. I was drinking like chugging 2 liters of
Yeah,
soda pop, Pepsi,
yeah.
and then eating. So the honey buns, little Debbie honey
Mm.
buns, they would come in these big boxes of like 12 packs, and I would eat like one of those a day right, before I went keto or low carb. And I gave that all up just within a few months' time.
You
So
must
I would
have.
say that the total span between the day I
Yeah.
quit meth and the day that I went full keto and had given up cigarettes and everything would have been 6 months time. It all just
Wow.
progressively happened, and that was in 2014.
Yeah, there must be something going on with you because when I started keto, I wasn't realizing at the time that I was more energetic, doing a lot more. I'm just this is just going back, looking back in hindsight. It's just I was looking for more things to do, and looking back, I'm just comparing myself from before keto and after keto. Before keto, I always had an excuse of I didn't have time to do this. I'm always tired, always busy, and not having time to go out with friends or family. Is just dreading going out because I'm always tired. But after keto, I feel like I had more time. I could accomplish more things. Did you feel that way because you've started to you said a span of 6 months you've quit cigarettes as along with other things too. Do you feel like it was doing something to your brain, doing something to your productivity, energy levels? What was going through? How were you feeling?
Well, I definitely know that it was changing my energy levels. When I had first started, so I had warrants for my arrest, and I didn't leave our trailer for like 2 years. I just stayed inside because I didn't want to get arrested. And then all of a sudden, I started having energy, which was weird because I had that energy, but without the meth. And so that was magical. And I think that really also helped with my recovery.
Hmm.
I started going outside and walking. I was still afraid of my warrants. Eventually, I did walk into a courtroom and I was like, hey, and we sorted the warrants out. I apologized and admitted I was wrong.
Hmm.
And so that was good. But recently, I was reading a book by Michelle Hearn, and I had found the term neuroplasticity. So when you reduce the inflammation, your brain can actually process these new changes. And going keto definitely, I think, allowed that process to happen and solidified my changes with sobriety. I'm also
Mm.
really good at getting what I want. So if
Yeah,
I want something, like I'm
yeah.
going to get it. I'm going to do it. I do what I want. I get what I want. I've always been that way. And I wanted to change.
See, that's where we that's what I was looking for right there. And you always wanted this. You always wanted to change. There was something about you back in Washington. Forgot the city. In
Okanagan.
Washington, Okanagan, yes, Okanagan. Back there when you were young, you always had this because the reason why I wanted to learn about that is because I want to be able to let people know how you did it and what took you from being there in the dark, very dark place in your life to making that decision. We talked about just it's a choice, it's a decision that you made, and then right there you said you wanted when you want something you get it right.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see that when I met you, which is great because when you made that choice, there was nothing stopping you from sobering up and making that your lifestyle. So now experience significant improvement in your immune system, like you said. Everything's great. You conquered the Epstein Barr syndrome.
Epstein Barr
Yeah,
virus.
yeah, the virus, the infection that once plagued you, and then the ketogenic lifestyle served healing you from diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and you're managing that. Awesome. And what I want to ask you now, what sort of led you to coaching others too, as well?
So once I started learning and really seeing improvements, I became like obsessed, and a very healthy obsession though. I've always been like able to hyper focus on certain things that I want or that I do. It's just my personality, and I became hyper focused on being online in the groups on Facebook, helping the people. I was sharing what I was doing. I was sharing the knowledge. I was talking to people, And then one day I was asked if that was something that I would like to do. So it was Mary and Katrina. They were like, hey, we're going to grow this program. And is this something that you might want to do? I was like, oh my God, yes. Because I was helping people anyway already, just willingly and for free. And so to have that opportunity and that chance to turn it into a job was like, this is amazing. And I didn't have any other job. I was just at home on my computer anyway. So it was awesome. It was an awesome opportunity. So grateful.
Yeah, no, imagine that, right? You're already helping people with this anyways, and you can now help more people by joining up and learning from the other coaches. Now, I was learning from you guys when I went to KetoCon, and when I joined you guys, I'm just watching you guys from afar and really learning from what you've experienced and and how you go about things. And so it's really an amazing experience for me. I'm glad I went to KetoCon just to meet you guys, right? And to help out answer people's questions over there. And it was great. Yeah. So if I wanna thank you so much for sharing that story. I want the people listening right now be able to find you. Where can people find you and reach out to you?
So I have an Instagram, but I suck at Instagram. It's Keto Wang there. My Facebook page is Keto Wang, but I'm most active on my profile, Elaina Wang. And then for coaching, it's the Ketogenic Lifestyle Coaching.com.
KetogenicLifestyleCoaching.com, and we'll link everything down in the description box below, guys. So you guys can check that out if you want to connect with Coach Elaina Wang here. And Elaina, thank you so much for joining me. And your story is awe-inspiring. And there's a lot of people who struggle right now, like you said. A lot of people who are struggling with addiction, sugar addiction as well. And our listeners are empowered with this knowledge, your story, right, in your journey to reclaiming your own health through the ketogenic diet, and how you're still today looking for ways to improve your lifestyle, right? So if you want to reach out to Coach Elaina, you can do so down below, ketogeniclifestyle.com. Elaina, thank you so much for
Thank
coming on.
you.
Awesome. All right. Bye bye.
Subscribe to the Ketones and Coffee podcast today and never miss an episode.